G'day, my name's Mark. I just want to take a quick moment to give a brief rundown of some of these clamps that I'm going to be testing and trialing, my initial thoughts and how I think that they're going to benefit me in my little shed. So just for this video, I want to have a quick talk about their little clutch quick release or FClamps, their I-bar, which is a sash clamp, and these pipe clamps with your BYO pipe, but these are a deep reach pipe clamp, so a little bit different to what you may have seen. I've also got some band clamps. I'm going to save that for a little side project, mainly because I've never used these before and I can't really make any comparisons. Okay, so these little clutched quick action clamps, or F clamps, I think are a must have around the shop, so very versatile. What I like about an F clamp over a squeezy clamp is they actually just do what they need to do. They stay there. Squeezy ones do tend to fail after a while. You constantly feel like you're pumping away, which not good on the hands eventually. These ones with the clutch, this is pretty cool, the way that it just so quick action onto your workpiece. A couple of turns and you're locked down. Rigged up a little pseudo bench here, but just so we can show you. I just like the fact that when you clutch it down, most of the work's done for you. A couple of turns and your workpiece is stable and ready to work on. What I've got here is your 12-inch or your 30-centimeter medium in the clutched F-clamp. What I also love about these is, say a couple of these is going to get you in the game nice and cheap and let you start clamping stuff up. For example, woodworking needs to be accessible when you first start, so gluing a heap of wood together, free wood off the side of the road is always a pretty good way to try out and see if you like it. But just having a couple of clamps like these ones will really open up what you can do. What you can do with the timber, just laminating together, pretty much making your own timber, which is pretty much what I've done since the start. But having some decent sized ones like this will let you clamp up a fair amount of stuff pretty easy. That's now a pretty broad piece of timber you have made. You've got yourself a few of them. As you can see, 1, 2, maybe even 3 clamps is going to be enough to basically produce yourself a nice piece of timber. Versatility is what you want to look for when buying tools, so just creating simple fast stops, knowing that this clamp isn't going to move. You can really tighten that up more than you probably should, but I know that's not going to go anywhere. Again, squeezy ones, sometimes they just fail a little bit, so you don't want your stop blocks moving for repeatable cuts. This is just one example. You're going to have stop blocks and repeatable cut setups all over your shop. You're not always going to have a tracking system, or you don't always want to make a jig. So just clamping on a bit of a timber super fast for me is what it's all about, and F clamps, that does the job for that. I love the clutch. I also do like this sort of extra grippy handle for tightening up the screw. These, although they are a small clamp in the medium range, they are very robust, and you can really get a lot of clamping power just behind that small amount of screw. So alright, so kick off with the sash clamps. Straight up, the biggest difference is the clamping mechanism is very similar to a pipe clamp. So you have this very robust mechanism for holding this end of the clamp, which is all spring tensioned. What you don't have is the holes where you would normally be using a pin to pin this end of the clamp and then tightening up here. What I do love about the no pin is often you are a little bit limited, so you're sort of taking a guess, getting this end as close to your workpiece as possible, and then hoping that you don't run out of thread when you're trying to clamp it all together, or then you're scrambling, you're putting in extra blocks, those sorts of things, which make for slowing your process down, not making your life very easy. This one, it's merely a case of slide them in. Because they are so robust, you can pretty much slam them in there and you've almost got the tension on the screws immediately. There's about 10 or 12 centimeters of travel on the screw, which is great, and it's super heavy duty. So I've had very cheap sash clamps in the past, and where they fail is the poor screw or the cheap thread on them. Okay, so with those pressed in hard, you can now go ahead and start tightening up, and you're pretty much going to be clamped off nicely straight away. So I've just got 2 on the bottom initially, and I'm going to give it a fair bit. I want to just see if it starts to pull it up or it's pulling nice and evenly across the bottom. So 7,000 pounds of clamping pressure, that's going to be more than enough. So let me just have a look underneath. At the moment, just 2 clamps. This has not lifted. This is not lifted in the middle at all, which is a pretty good sign. With the timber I like to use, it's a lot of pallet wood, scrap wood. It's often bent, warped, twisted. So that's where these heavy hitters are going to be advantageous, because they've got that grunt behind it. It's going to pull all that timber in nicely without damaging your clamps. I think a couple of heavy hitter sash clamps are going to be pretty awesome to get you in the game. So this glue up here is pretty much what I started doing from day one. I didn't have a table saw, a thicknesser. I pretty much had a miter saw. On the underside, I've got a nice flat surface just from 2 clamps. They're not being pulled up, so I'm going to be able to clean that up by hand, or an old school method, which I'm not going to do anymore. Fairly easy. This sort of uppy downy side, well, that would be the underside of my table, so I didn't really care. This is a pretty big glue up, and I've just got 3 clamps on here. Just those 3 clamps is more than enough to glue up this big chunk of wood. Okay, without jumping forward onto this deep reach pipe clamp, I just want to show you this particular combination. Couple of sash clamps on the bottom doing all the heavy hitting, and then I've got this deep reach clamp. Where this deep reach has come in handy, it's getting that pressure down further on the board, and for this particular ugly glue up, it's basically spanning all my up and downies of what would be pallet wood. Let's chat about this deep reach pipe clamp. Okay, the obvious difference is you do have this big deep reach, which is going to be great for getting nicer glue ups where the pressure is pulling from further up the board, depending on what you're actually doing. The second big difference is the adjustment is on the same end as the screw, where normally you would be adjusting the opposite end down the pipe, and this screw end would be the fixed end of the pipe clamp. Well, for me, I just think it's fantastic that you can just hook it on, slide it up, and lock it off. That doesn't get any easier. Sometimes with your stock standard pipe clamp, it does get a little bit fiddly trying to get that pipe clamp seated. You haven't got a lot to grip onto and manipulate that spring-loaded mechanism. So they've taken away all that drama by putting it all here. So you can get your thumb and finger in there, jam it into position. You're also not going to jam your fingers because the pin is protecting. Sorry, the head of the screw is protecting. So they're pretty cool. Okay, I just want to talk about versatility, why I think these are going to be a bit of a winner. Because this end does slide on and off, you may be doing a very large clamp up where you might just have to go and buy some 3/4 inch pipe. Now, you may not be able to get it threaded, so what you can do is, with a combination of this end and a normal end, you can effectively slide one on one end, one on the other, and you're not going to have to rely on a thread. You're basically giving yourself that ability to have these really long pipes without the restrictions of any threads. So that's pretty cool too. Let me just show you what I was trying to describe. So these are just my generic unbranded ends of my normal pipe clamp. Not a lot of room to move for your fingers and getting them adjusted, especially once they are pressed up against the workpiece. It does get a little bit hard to actually knock these back, and sometimes you've got to whack them with a hammer, which that's no good. So now, if you can imagine, I've got my really long pipe with no threads. I'm now not restricted by where this pin is coming from. Slides it up. So again, you're unlimited, which is basically, you could have a couple of 3-meter pieces of pipe in your shed to cover anything that you want to do. Okay, here is another pretty awesome advantage of this end being fixed. These would have been super handy when I assembled this bench. The fact that you can put that end of the clamp and grab onto it, holding your workpiece, and then a couple of turns and you're done. Again, the deep reach, it's pulling from the center of these big chunky beams, and it's not going to want to twist out my my joinery. That is going to be more than enough because it's pulling almost past center, but it is pulling from this side, so it's sort of countering itself. This extended screw on the end here is, rather than beating the snot out of your workpiece with a mallet to bring your joinery in, just having that freedom to let something mechanical pull the workpiece in, that's going to be less fatigue on my shoulders and my hands. I'm letting the power of this clamp do all the heavy pulling in for me. So look, I'm really looking forward to using these clamps. I love how robust they are. I love their ease of use, and more than anything, I love that they are orange. Anyway, now, so make sure you are subscribed to the Timbecon channel. You'll see myself, a couple of other Aussie makers producing some content to showcase all of this cool gear. And obviously, if you want to see some bonus stuff, make sure you subscribe to myself and the other Aussies, which you'll get to know through the Timbecon channel, or you may already know them because you follow us already. So thanks very much, and hope you enjoy what's coming over the next couple of months. Cheers.